in my experience, probably 9 out of 10 people are petrified of creating content on LinkedIn because they're worried about colleagues judging them, their boss judging them. What if you lose your job if you post the wrong thing? Like, these are real concerns from real people.
This is Michelle J.Raymond, the corporate trainer and 2-time best-selling author who has become the go-to authority on LinkedIn company pages. And today on Useful Content, she's going to share her proven strategies on how to grow your LinkedIn company and personal pages.
It's about finding what is the thing that you're most comfortable with, that for the first couple of months, you can commit to doing consistently every week, because it's that consistency which is going to pay off.
Why your company is better off having many people creating on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn's a team sport. The more you get your team involved, the more success that you're going to have.
Why it's critical to fix both your personal and company pages before you start making content.
Imagine creating amazing content. Somebody has a poke around, goes back to your profile or your company page, and they're greeted with either a ghost town or something that's completely out of date or really undersells the person or the business.
And finally, she shares her perspective on the one thing you really need to be worried about when you start sharing content on LinkedIn.
There's so much advice going out there from LinkedIn trainers like myself, often conflicting. And I say, throw that all out the window, push it to the side. The only thing you need to worry about is...
Let's make useful content. Teaching you to make useful content so that you can build long-term relationships with the people that matter to your business. Hello and welcome to the Useful Content Podcast. And today we have a brand new teacher in the Useful Content Classroom, Michelle J.Raymond. Hi, Michelle.
G'day, Juma. I am so excited to be on the podcast with the man with the smoothest tones and best teaching. So I've been waiting for this episode for so long, and here we are.
Oh, you flatter me too much. And I could say so many good things about you. So we've been connected on LinkedIn since 2021, I checked, and that is pretty accurate. And over the past few years, you have had tremendous growth on LinkedIn. You create a ton of weekly content. You have a successful LinkedIn company page, because that's the thing that you do. You have launched 2 podcasts, written 2 books. You've launched a newsletter, launched a YouTube channel. And at this point, you have, hundreds of live shows. And you've basically become the go-to authority when it comes to LinkedIn company pages. Not to mention, you did a massive rebrand last year. How has the journey been for you on LinkedIn?
When I listen back to what other people tell me I do, there's no way that I believe that I'm doing all of that myself, because it's kind of crazy to think about. So for the person who doesn't listen to podcasts, I run 2 of my own. For the person who doesn't really enjoy video content, I run a really successful YouTube channel. The person that never thought I'd be an author, I've written 2 books. And why? Because I like to create content for how my audience likes to consume it. So that's what drives me. And I think that's one of the things that when I look back, I'm most proud of. And I can't wait to talk to your audience a little bit more about how that all came about. Company pages on LinkedIn are my specialty, but there's just so many more opportunities that have come out of that. It's kind of crazy when I stop and think about it.
And also you, by the time this comes out, it'll be long gone, but you are going to be at the Social Media Marketing World this year as a speaker. And how has that preparation been?
I'm not going to lie. It depends on the moment you ask me. So I found out, a few months back, and I was so excited, dancing on the spot, like no one's watching, and super crazy. And then I go through these moments of, oh my God, I'm going to San Diego to present on a stage in front of all of these people. What if I don't know my stuff? And everywhere in between, depending on the moment. So the thing is, at the end of the day, I know that what I've got is going to make a difference to all the marketers that attend. And I can't wait to get there now. It's not too far away. And as you said, it'll probably have happens, by the time this goes live. And I have another one to look forward to. I'm getting to speak in Denmark. Now, this whole thing blows my mind. From starting my business 4 years ago to speaking on international stages, Like, pinch me, Juma. How did this all happen?
I think it's amazing. I think it's simply amazing, and most of it, I mean, it's you, but most of it is due to how you built on LinkedIn, and of course your 20 years of B2B sales experience and all those things that came before. So, could you share with the people how you help your clients make useful content?
Yeah, I'd love to. So ultimately, I specifically help business owners in the business to business space learn how to leverage LinkedIn to grow their business. So I, as you just said, spent 20 years in B2B sales. And so that part of me has never really left, but I learned how to leverage LinkedIn around 9 years ago. So I started creating content as part of my role as an account manager, selling raw materials and ingredients that make beauty products, and fast forward 9 years, I'm just teaching other people all that experience. And so for me, when I'm working with my clients, they're at all different stages of the journey, Juma, as I'm sure you can relate. Some of them have never created anything, nor do they want to. Some of them are active and need some help to refine how do you do it on LinkedIn. And so it's, finding that balance as well between building personal brands and how much effort you put into that content, and your company page and how much effort you should put into that. And it's been amazing to see, even in the last 4 years, how much those two things, building personal and company brands and the content you create for both, is actually almost morphed into the same thing. So that's an interesting dynamic to have seen. So knowing what to post, how often to post, and what formats to post is, one part of the conversation. But I also like to help them get the right mindset so that they're not freaked out about actually getting out there. Because in my experience, probably 9 out of 10 people are petrified of creating content on LinkedIn because they're worried about colleagues judging them, their boss judging them. What if you lose your job if you post the wrong thing? Like, these are real concerns from real people. So I love helping employees as well.
You mentioned to me earlier when we were speaking offline that just this year that you started to get some help doing your own development and with your website and different things. And for people who are doing it for themselves, what is one of the biggest things they have to look out for when trying to build their B2B business and even their personal business on LinkedIn?
There becomes a point where you have to know your own limitations and ask for help. Now, I personally pride myself on being able to figure stuff out. And I think that I moved out of home when I was 18, never had any money to pay people to fix stuff for me. So I used to love researching to figure out how I could do anything. And I carried that part of me into my business. And I prided myself on, how do you do a podcast or how do you do a YouTube channel? But there were some things which I realize now in hindsight that I wish I'd reached out to experts earlier on. And so the thing that I prided myself on can also be the thing that holds me back. So that willingness to ask for help, especially on LinkedIn, can be helpful because sometimes just posting content over and over, doing more content is not going to help you if it's the wrong content. Doing the wrong thing for years is also not going to be helpful. So if you are on LinkedIn and think you're taking the right actions, but you don't have people booking calls with you, you don't have people converting into sales, then that's the moment where you need to stop and invest in things like training with an expert, because otherwise you are just going to keep going down that rabbit hole and the funds dry up, the opportunities dry up, you'll start to feel overwhelmed, and it can get really frantic when you can see your bank account dollars going down and down and down. And so this is the thing that I would say. The thing I've learned is ask for help if it's not working. It is a worthwhile investment and can bring all of those results you desperately want and need forward. And that's really important.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's a real feeling that people have, entrepreneurs, particularly people who are in it for the first time. And there's something that they're trying, they don't know the way. And I have had that feeling too when I've built certain things. Now, I've been in business for a number of years. And so there's some things that have become second nature, but there are some things that you just don't know. And you don't know that you don't know sometimes. And only when you have a conversation with somebody who is more knowledgeable, who has built something, that you can have a clear sense of these are the steps that I have to take. And these are the things I have to do in order to grow. And today, that's what we're going to get into. We're going to get into B2B growth for LinkedIn and how you can grow your business on LinkedIn. So when you have to talk to somebody about growing their business on LinkedIn, what's the first thing that you tell them in the beginning of that process?
The first thing, the very first question that I always ask is, what are your business goals? Right? Everything we do on LinkedIn has to be driving you towards those goals. Now, you'd be surprised at how many people say, I don't really know. I just know I should be on LinkedIn. I'm like, okay, but if you want to be busy for busy's sake, you can spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. You can get lost, and all of a sudden you'll realize, hang on, where's my day gone? But if you start with a business goal and then work backwards and say, how can my LinkedIn strategy get me towards that business goal? That's the first place to start. Because if you don't start with the goals, then how do you know who you're talking to? How do you know what products and services you're offering? What kind of content works best for that particular audience? And so, people skip this step. They want, and I love the enthusiasm. I love that they want to dive straight in. I am that person. I appreciate you more than you know. But the fact is, you'll spend 6 months and then go, hang on a minute, you take a look around, you're in the wrong place, attracting the wrong customers and not getting those opportunities. So for me, I always say start with goals. I'm wondering, what do you start with, Juma?
Well, I mean, I'm not really someone who tells people how to be successful on LinkedIn, but when we start with content, that is actually what we do. We ask people what are their goals. So we start from the top. Maybe it's a content strategy, but we go above that and say, well, what is your marketing strategy? So we try to look at the bigger picture before we come down to what we're going to execute for them on the content strategy level. So I agree with you 100%. You can't start on the journey without having a clear sense of where you want to go. And those things might change in the journey. You might adjust them, you might change them, you might say, okay, I'm going to lean more this way, as I'm sure you've discovered in your process. But you must start with some type of reference point. So I agree with you 100%. And one of the ways people can grow on LinkedIn is by having a presence there, right? It's just by having a presence on LinkedIn. So there's a personal and there's a company presence. And how does one, if somebody has never been on LinkedIn before, I know some people, they have dead profiles. Basically, they were back in the days when LinkedIn was a resume site. What are some of the first changes that people would have to make to their presence on LinkedIn, both for themselves and for their company pages, in order to start that journey of growth?
You're absolutely right. The profile and the company page are like your foundational stones that when you set those, you can build everything else on top. Because imagine creating amazing content. Somebody has a poke around, goes back to your profile or your company page, and they're greeted with either a ghost town or something that's completely out of date or really undersells the person or the business. And that's typically what I see. So, building your personal brand and your company brand by having a company page that's set up. So, go back and spend some time and make sure that it's up to date. You would be surprised at how many people have incomplete company pages. And LinkedIn tells us, Juma, that if you have 100% page setup completed, you get up to 30% more weekly impressions, which on company pages, we have to fight for every little impression that we get. So that's a big change. On your profile, I think it's even more important because you're going to get more visitors over there, especially the smaller businesses. You're going to spend a lot more time building your personal brand. And so going back and, I've recently run a, challenge on my YouTube channel. And one of the things that I did to people was I said to them, you can actually download a copy of your PDF of your LinkedIn profile, old school, grab yourself a highlighter or a pen and go through it and just find out what's out of date, what's missing, what is really speaking to your ideal audience. So, a quick tip, if it speaks about yourself in the third person, we've moved on for that because profiles now are in service of your ideal audience. So, show them why you're the most, show them why you're the best person for the job to take away the problem. That's why businesses exist. We exist because someone's got a problem, they pay us for it to go away. And so when I had people start to just do that really simple task, all of a sudden they were like, oh my God, I haven't updated this since the last time I went for a job, which for some solopreneurs and business owners, they haven't been for a job in 20 years. The oldest photo that got updated as part of the challenge was 30 years old. That's how old the person's photo was that they were using. And I was like, okay, can we just at least start with the basics? An updated photo from the last couple of years, a banner, and some information in that about section. Let's just start there and we can work our way up.
Yeah, that's so interesting. That's so interesting. People actually having put the profile there just for having it their sake and haven't utilized it as yet. And this can apply not just for people who are running their own business like solopreneurs, but it can also apply to employees of B2B businesses as well, and maybe even executive. Have you seen there be a great influx or great growth in the numbers of people from companies who are now updating their profiles and being more current?
It's really interesting that someone flicked the switch in business to business and said, hey, you need to be online these days. You know, you need to have a digital presence. Now, LinkedIn is the number one platform for B2B because it's trusted. Now, the B2C, so business to consumer industry, they nailed this 10, 15 years ago. You know, e commerce is pretty amazing and pretty switched on. Business to business, however, yeah, they're way behind and just getting started. And what's happening, and I saw it even when I was working in, sales based roles, is that more and more as the internet became a thing, and yes, I was selling long before Google was a thing. Ultimately, what was happening was once upon a time, I had all the power. I was the salesperson. I had all the product sheets, the spec sheets, the inside details, the market knowledge. It was all with me, and you would come and reach and ask your questions of me. Fast forward, Google kicks in, everything's online, and now the B2B buyers got all the knowledge. They can just type it in. They probably know more than most salespeople because they're interacting with so many different people. Now, the research shows that roughly 60 to 70% of that buying decision has been done online before they even reach out to a salesperson. So if you're waiting for them to talk to someone, you're too late. And this is why I'm seeing many more businesses start to go, we need to be online. And I think the other thing that happened during COVID lockdowns, around the world, sure, no one ever expected something like that to possibly happen. But old school selling methods went out the window. No more trade shows, no more events, no more customer visits. All these kinds of things got benched. And then even more people started coming online looking for answers because, those traditional methods were gone. So we're seeing like a shift post that, and we're seeing the power shift with the buyers. And I think that's why now I'm seeing lots of companies reach out to me, Michelle, I want my, CEO wants to be a thought leader. It seems to be the cool thing to be at the moment. But I think there's more to it than any one person in a business is responsible for growth on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a team sport. The more you get your team involved, the more success that you're going to have. So don't leave it to just one person in marketing or the CEO's profile or just one employee who might be already creating content. Bring it all together, and those synergies, that's where we get the awesome results.
LinkedIn is a team sport. I had never thought of it that way because when you think about profiles, you think about the individual. And come to think of it, I had seen some companies like they synchronize their banners and different things of that sort. I had seen that, but it never really occurred to me that yes, if everyone in the company, or well, maybe not everyone, but if the people who are willing and ready to be more present on LinkedIn actually have a presence and share content, then that will amplify the brand in a way that you can't do if just one individual or maybe even a company page could do. But I know in your case, you believe in a combination of LinkedIn profiles and company page content, and that's the winning combo. So, why is that the winning combo? And then afterwards, we could talk about some specific things we could do on either page in order to start the journey of becoming more present on LinkedIn. Why are those two things a winning combo?
If we take that sporting team analogy a little bit further, and I love creating LinkedIn dream teams. Imagine the company page, maybe that's your defense, and then you've got your employees are out there on the offense, and name any sport, doesn't matter which one it is. But if you were to take the company page out, you've effectively lost 50% of the opportunities that are available to you. And then all of a sudden, you've got no one backing up those employees that are out there. Now, if you're a sporting person and you want to go out and play for a team, you want to play for the best team in the world, the best team in the league, and think about it. When they go out on the ground, they've all got the same jerseys on, they're all showing up, doing exactly the same thing, working for the same goal. And I think that's the important part is not just going, oh, that's marketing's job. leave it up to marketing and the sales team sits back and goes, that's not my job. I'm not going to help them. I don't get paid to do that. Well, no business operates in isolation. You all have to work together to get those results. And so if you think about it, why not just go hard on personal branding? Because we know that we'll probably get more reach with our content. Well, the problem is, Juma, what happens if your star employee who has built up their personal brand goes to another company or sets up their own business or decides they don't want to do it anymore for whatever reason? What happens then? You've got all your eggs in that one basket. The same thing happens when you want to replace that person. They're doing their online research and employer branding becomes really important. And they jump online, and the LinkedIn company page will show up on the first page of Google results if you Google a business name, typically. And it's right up at the top. If I click on that, what impression do I get if I come across to the company page? And so we've got this combination of things going on of how do you support people to grow their personal brands? How do you become an employer of choice? And there's lots of different dynamics all going on at the same time. But I think in life, the more that you can bring people together, and they'll all do different things. Not everyone wants to be a superstar on LinkedIn and create content, but sometimes you'll find some people in the office, they're amazing cheerleaders. They're going to support other people to do it. So it's about finding, how do you find that right balance? And I can assure you it starts at the top. So any CEO or business owner or leader that's listening to this podcast, you really need to set the example, because people are looking to you and they'll copy your behaviors. And if it's good enough for you, it's good enough for everyone else. This is not a case of do as I say, not as I do, or not my problem, I'm too busy. It's something that I think you have to find time for.
That's great. That's a great opening to ask now, what are the things, or the top three things? Because I'm suspecting there's a long list of things you could do to make an impact with your LinkedIn presence, both on the personal profile, and on the LinkedIn page. And let me just say too, this doesn't only apply for companies with multiple employees. This could be like a solopreneur. They can have a uh, personal profile, and then have their company represented as a page too. So these things can work for both. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good part about it is the smaller the business, the bigger the opportunity. Now, why do I say that? Because you get all the same features as a multinational company with 15,000 employees. You get the same banner size, the same amount of content you can put out, all the same features, pretty much for free. You don't need to put money into it. I don't talk about paid strategies. That's not my piece of the puzzle, but you can use your company brand to reinforce your personal brand, no different to the big guys. And actually, I think it has more of an impact because it stops you from just appearing like you're just a small fry, not a real business, just a hobby business. Or it really legitimizes what you do. And so you may not put as much effort and time into it because ultimately you're juggling so much, but you are going to all of a sudden look like a real business in inverted commas. And I think that's important.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So that leads us straight into, let's get the top three things we can do on either side in order for somebody to set up their page. We're not going to go all the way down. If they want to get more detail, they could probably come to you, and you and Michelle and maybe Brenda, I don't know, could talk with them together or something of that sort. But let's get the top three things that people should deal with first on their LinkedIn personal profile, and then we'll switch across and we'll do the top three things that they should do on their company page to connect that and to allow for them to start on their LinkedIn journey, their B2B LinkedIn journey properly. So let's do the personal profile first, and then you could take it across to the company page.
I reckon we could make it even easier and say it's the same three things on both. And the reason I say that is the first place I want people to start is the banner. So the cover image, which is the big image that you're greeted with when you land on a profile or you land on a company page. Both that they're different sizes, which makes it a bit awkward, but think about it as your billboard for your business. So if you're missing one or it hasn't been updated in a little while, think of it as an opportunity that if I was standing in Times Square, had my eyes going around looking at all those billboards, I want yours to stand out so I know I'm in the right place. So I tend to say to people, have a image that's up there with at least 5 words that describe what you do or what your tagline might be. And I think that's important so that people immediately know that they've landed in the right place. So, number one, I would say, is the banner. Number two, I would say, is the about section that is on both the profile and the company page. If it's been a while since you updated it, it's time to go back and have another look. And I always like to say to people, is it clear who you like to work with, what problem you solve, and what it's like working with you? And if you keep it that kind of simple, there's lots of different copywriting frameworks that we can go into, but I like to keep things a little bit simpler. Just again, if people are drawn to words and want to dive into things a little bit deeper, just they have to see that you're the right person for the job. Maybe it's your values aligned, maybe it's your way of doing things. Maybe some people just want a group work instead of an online course, or vice versa, one-on-one. And so just again, make it really, really obvious. I think too many profiles, Juma, they and about sections on company pages, they either get lost in jargon, lost in talking all about the person and how amazing they are. And people, when they land there, just go, okay, enough about you. What about me? And I don't ever want people to think about that when they land on either my about section on the company page or the about section on my profile. The third thing I would say is just the incomplete information is the thing that is worthwhile investing and going back and updating. And, it seems kind of obvious and basic. And the problem is, every single profile and company page that I work on with audits or rewriting services, I always find broken links. I always find missing information. The last thing that we want is to basically have someone on the hook. They love to, they'd love to work with you. They like the content that you've been putting out, and they can't find you how to work with you or connect with you. And so making sure that that kind of stuff is up to date is another thing. And, there's people think that LinkedIn, you have to make it complicated to win. And I actually say it's doing the basics consistently over time, which is where the winners come through. So they would be my 3 tips, which apply across the board.
Oh, that's great. That's good tips. So those two sets of tips, or that one set of tips, applies to both your company page and your personal profile. Is there any difference between those? Because I know on your company page, you'll have to get your own headshot, and then on your profile, you'll have to get your headshot, and then on the company page, you'll probably want to put your logo as the image and things of that sort. And maybe there might be some same structure, but there might be slight differences. Are there anything that we should be aware of when we're doing it for the first time and we don't know
Yeah,
how to do it?
we know that LinkedIn always doesn't make life as simple as what I just have. So the banner sizes are slightly different. You're right. We will have a photo versus a logo on the company page. Things like the tagline and the about sections, they're different lengths on company pages. It's like 2,000 characters. On your profile, it's 2,600. So make sure you use as many of those as you can. So if you go in there and you're only using a small amount, make sure that we kind of maximize it and put lots of keywords in there so that the LinkedIn search algorithm knows what your company page and your profile is all about. So, but you're right, there is a lot of crossover. And at the end of the day, even if you're a solopreneur, your business is different to you. It can have a slightly different personality and care about different things, or not care about things more than what you do personally. And so it doesn't have to be not human. You don't have to try and pretend you're bigger than what you are, but they are different things. And, I say to people, you don't know where you'll be in, 5 years. Plan for what would happen if I wanted to sell the business. I can't sell Michelle J.Raymond's LinkedIn profile if I've built up 20,000 followers. That isn't an asset that I can give to someone else. If you've got a great following on your company page, you can. Same as if you've got employees that are coming or you want to come, or collaborative partners that you want to work with. So just think, maybe it's not right now, but what are your hopes and dreams for your business that, maybe these 2 tools can help support you to get there.
Okay, that's good. That's good. There's a little difference. There's a little tweaks we could make. And also, what about, because you mentioned earlier that the way in which you run your pages is that in the intro, I talked about the many things that you've done and the different types of content you've released, from podcast to newsletter to YouTube channel and all those different things. And so there is some indication that you need to serve different types of content because your audience will consume it in different ways. What is the advice that you give to people who are starting up and beginning to create content? What should they really be looking out for? And is there a difference between company page content and personal profile content?
If you're starting out, pick whichever your favorite is. There is no point me saying that short form video is going to work the best if you're terrified about being on camera. And the same thing goes if you don't want to write long form text, then maybe articles and newsletters are not for you. It's about finding what is the thing that you're most comfortable with, that for the first couple of months, you can commit to doing consistently every week without missing any, because it's that consistency which is going to pay off more than worrying about, oh, should I do this type or mix it up or go crazy. There are some people who are really great with graphic design. That is not me, for the record. If anyone's ever seen any of my photoshopping type fails, but it's always a bit of fun. But ultimately, just find what works for you. I often find if you take a photo of something that you're working on, somewhere that you're at, photos are easier to talk about, when you're writing the text for them and they prompt your mind about why you took that photo. But I think most people overthink this stage and don't get started. And that's the biggest fear that I have. And I hope that our listeners, maybe there's someone out there right now that hasn't done their first post and is held back. It's just put something out there, even if it's just to say, this is my first post and I'm terrified, because guess what? Everybody else is as well. It might feel like everyone's got it all together, but the fact is it's just, a couple of percent of people that are actually posting consistently. So for me, start small, start with your favorite thing. That is not your excuse later on to not try other things and other formats. I was absolutely petrified of making a 5-minute video for a digital marketing course I signed up for, so much so that that course sat in my cupboard and is still there, and I never completed it. I started on LinkedIn Lives as my way of trying to get over that hurdle. And people probably think, LinkedIn Lives, how crazy is that? Like, people are watching you live. I say, yeah, but they don't expect me to be perfect. I don't have to worry about editing. I didn't have to worry about seeing an audience, and things like this. So it was a great place for me to start. And I highly encourage people to, check out LinkedIn Lives. Part of the reason I can do all of those things you were talking about, Juma, is because I repurpose. And I know you are such a big fan of repurposing as well, but my LinkedIn Live turns into my podcast audio, turns into short clips, turns into YouTube shorts. It turns into blog articles that I write. So that for me, talking for half an hour on one LinkedIn Live turns into so much more and saves me so much time. So that's probably one of the other secrets. Don't go too hard too early. You'll just give up. And that is the last thing, because, as you know, LinkedIn doesn't work with spike of activity, disappear for 3 weeks, spike, disappear. It is the slow and steady, keep showing up, staying top of mind. So there's probably more tips than you asked for, but my most powerful one is please just do what gets you started and gets consistent.
Oh, we're grateful for the tips. That's for sure. We're grateful for the tips. And I agree with you. And I think that people really get bogged down by that. Like, where do I start? What do I have to create? And I have to take somebody blame for that, and other creators have to take somebody blame for that, because we tend to push the thing that we're most comfortable with. Like, I might say, do video. Video is so easy. You just have to follow these 10 tips or whatever it might be. And people might be saying they might actually not want to do video. They might actually just want to do some text posts, and that might be the thing that they are going to succeed with, because it's not so much the format, but are you going to keep on doing it? As you mentioned, are you going to be consistent in putting the content out, executing on it week after week? I would say you have to do it for at least a year. That's for me personally. And in our dealing with clients, we have found that it takes about a year to build this habit and to get results. Sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it's slower, but around a year to 18 months. And then you start to get results. When I was looking at your profile earlier today, I noticed an interesting thing, Michelle. And I want you to tell me, because I've never seen anyone do this before. So in the contact section of your personal profile, under the address, you have a long message. And it's not your address. It's just basically saying that because of the power of Zoom, I can actually read it. Thanks to the powers of Zoom, I work globally with clients. If you want to send me something, send a quick DM and I'll give you the address. And I didn't know you could do that. And that's such an interesting thing. What made you come up with that?
I didn't want to lose out on business opportunities because someone logged on, had a look, saw I was here in Sydney, Australia, and went, "Oh, I can't work with her because she's not in the same country as I am." My thing that I love about LinkedIn is that the opportunity is you can narrow in and focus and work with people locally, or you can zoom all the way out and work with people all over the world. Now, that's the option that I've ended up going down. I would say 9 out of 10 of my clients come from overseas. I've worked with about 18 different countries. So it was just my way of saying, hey, don't cut me off just because I'm not in the same place as you. And I think, it's one of those things that when you do anything on LinkedIn, whether it's creating content or setting up your profile or your company page, everything that I do is in service of somebody else. That's how I've gathered so much success in a relatively short period of time. So I do things that I don't want someone who wants to work with me look at that and then freak out and think, I can't work with Michelle. I really wanted to, but I'm sitting in the UK and she's in Australia. So, everything I do is how can I make the, yeah, I guess the process of working with me seamless, easy, and the last thing I want to do with all the content that I put out is lose them at that final hurdle where we're so close, but then they go, oh, no, I can't work with this. So it's a bit of fun. And I think I encourage every listener to have some fun, try new things. Don't just copy what's out there. That is the biggest mistake that people can make is just start to look and end up being a clone of someone else. And I call it, create your digital twin. You want the version of you on LinkedIn that's the same as if I met you at a networking event, not this manufactured, I've got to be a certain thing on LinkedIn. I've got to be more professional. I've got to be this. Oh, I can't say that. I can't show my personality. And it's not about just sharing your deep, darkest secrets. It's just about being yourself. And when people do that, takes that pressure off Juma, and you see them almost, when I tell people you can just be yourself, it's almost like this sigh of relief, like, oh, finally, I can stop holding my breath and trying to be professional. I went through it myself. I know what it feels like. LinkedIn trainer Michelle, when I started my business, oh, I did not like being her, I can assure you. But I like being LinkedIn trainer Michelle, who cares about people, not afraid to call out stuff. And, I found my place. And all that's ended up is as time goes on, I'm more me and less of the person I thought I had to be.
Good business with good people, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's such good advice.
Uh, Look, it's so easy for me to say, but I have empathy for listeners who are going, yeah, it's good for you, Michelle, but what about me? It works for everyone. It may not happen to you overnight, but again, when you're in service of other people, it's amazing how much your brain switches off. And I don't worry about, oh, does my voice sound funny? Am I the smartest person? Do I know the most about company pages or am I just an imposter? All that noise has disappeared for me because all I do is wake up every day and the actions I take, the content I create is in service of other people. And when I think about the difference it makes for them, I don't have all of that noise anymore. And so that's, the biggest difference. But that didn't happen on day one. So if you're at day one or back in the beginning, don't compare that to, day 4 years for me, which is one of the best sayings that I heard when I was starting out. Don't compare your day one to someone else's day 100, because that is a recipe for disaster on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and a recipe for disaster almost anywhere. And I think that is excellent advice. I know for me, and if I have to be totally transparent, I have issues with myself. Well, we all do. We have issues with how we appear or how we sound, whether we know something or not. You compare yourself to other people. It's an ongoing battle, internal battle, to continue doing the thing you know you need to do in order to build your business and just in order to be do well in life in general. And I think I do take your advice, and I do think it's good advice that you're giving in terms of think about who you'll be helping as opposed to yourself. If you focus a lot on yourself, you become too self-conscious. and you wouldn't be able to get over the hurdle of how I look, how I sound, what I know, what I don't know, what other people are doing. You know, focus on the people that you're serving, and it makes it much, much easier to get over the hurdle of starting to share the content in the places both on your profile and on your company page that will help grow your business. And I think that's extremely important.
And I'd love to just add one more piece onto that is when you are doing that, you don't get as overwhelmed by all the noise that happens on LinkedIn about you should be doing this, you should be doing this kind of post, this kind of, this number of hashtags, this short form, that long form. Like there's so much advice going out there from LinkedIn trainers like myself, often conflicting. And, there's a lot of guidance about what makes the algorithm happy on LinkedIn. And I say, throw that all out the window, push it to the side. The only thing you need to worry about is being your digital twin in service of your audience and what will make the biggest difference for them. And that's like, when people are getting started, a lot of people would say don't use the repost feature, which is something that we can do on LinkedIn because you don't get credit for the reach and impressions, or it's helping someone else, it doesn't go very far, or sharing links doesn't go very far. And I say, you know what, start where you can start. If hitting the repost button on a great post that you enjoyed that someone else created is where you're comfortable with, go there, because it's that first step that you can build on. It's the people that are stuck, paralyzed, can't click on anything, can't press like, can't write a comment, can't send a message, can't connect with people. It starts with whatever that small action is. So do it in service of other people and definitely not the LinkedIn algorithm.
Yeah, I didn't expect our conversation to end up here or to go here, but this is so great because I think this is some of the things that people need to hear. This is some of the things that new business owners who are trying to find their way, or even established business owners who are trying to find their way on LinkedIn specifically, need to hear. As somebody who has experience, both you and myself, on the platforms and in our particular places of expertise, we give advice, but it's not one size fits all. You have to know what applies to you. And in some cases, you have to ignore the advice totally. I don't expect that everyone I speak to or hears or sees my content should take all of my advice. In fact, I go experiment for yourself. Go find out what works for yourself. Do the thing that you feel you're most comfortable with, that you can handle. Don't overwhelm yourself. And then you go through a process of discovering what works for you. So I think that is really, really, really excellent advice. In fact, I like recently, and this is just to add to what you're saying, recently I myself got fed up of following some of the conventions, and I said I'm going to use LinkedIn like it's Twitter. I'm just going to write short text posts and just post them, and I've been doing that for the last since the beginning of this year without any apology, and it's been working for me because sometimes I just have a thought and I want to share it with the people who are connected to me and the people who like my content, and I don't want to go and record a 5-minute video or spend 2 hours 4 minutes. I just want to say something, and I just do it, and I think doing that really does help you.
Takes away that feeling of being overwhelmed all the time, and when you're overwhelmed, you can't create good content because you're stuck in your own brain going, is it right? Is it perfect? Have I done this that person does it like this. Maybe I should try and sound like them. That person's got more likes. And, don't even get me started on engagement pods because that's a whole other podcast for another day. But the thing that when Michelle Griffin and I wrote the LinkedIn branding book together, it's a book on branding, but the whole first section is dedicated to mindset because it doesn't matter who we come across. If we don't get people out of being, I guess, fearful, overwhelmed, imposter syndrome kicks in big time for most people at some stage on LinkedIn, myself included, as always. But we started with mindset because it doesn't matter how many LinkedIn tips I give you about content or Juma gives you about content. If you can't get your mindset in that right place to actually get you started, the rest of it is just white noise that gets you nowhere. And so that's why it's really important to me to have the conversations to say, you know what, if you're feeling like this, it is totally real. It is totally normal. It doesn't matter whether you're a CEO starting out, 20 years experience, 2 minutes experience. it happens to everybody. And I think it's really important to normalize that feeling. Social media is designed for us all to compare ourselves to other people and how they're going. And comparisonitis, that will kill your creativity as well. And so, just by normalizing conversations like this. So I appreciate you, Juma, letting this conversation go that way, because we can talk about features and functions on the platform and, what makes great content. But if I can't get people off the sidelines creating, then, the rest of it, as I said, is just white noise. And I would hate for that to be the thing that stops people from growing their business like they dream about.
That's so good. That's so good. And I don't think we can add any more to that. We can go back and talk about features and tips and tricks about LinkedIn pages. Now we've gone down a road of encouraging the people. And I think this is a good place to bring us in for a close. Michelle, if someone hears this and they want to come to your page and get lots more encouragement and also some tips and tricks, tell me, where can they find you online?
Look, I have got millions of tips and tricks in lots of different places, but please come and connect with me over on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active, and it's Michelle J.Raymond. And the reason the J's there is because there's thousands of Michelle Raymond, so I've made it a little bit easier for you to find me, not make myself try and sound smarter, which is what somebody asked me one day, do I put the J in there so I sound smarter? And I was like, no, I'm just doing it in service so you can find me easier, which I thought was hilarious. And I was like, do people think that about me? I'm human. I have the same thoughts as everybody else. But I would love it if you've listened to the podcast to let me know that this was helpful. And if there's anything that I can do to help you get that first post out there, and myself and Juma, we're here cheering you on. So I'm always happy to help.
That's so cool. That's good. That's good. My middle initial does not work very well, so I don't have one. Maybe one day I'll try to make myself sound smarter by adding it in.
You're already smarter. You don't have to worry about that.
But it's been so good talking with you, Michelle, about LinkedIn pages and about personal profiles, and in the end, encouraging the people to do what works for them on LinkedIn to get started. That was key inside of there. So thank you so much, students, for joining us on the Useful Content Podcast, Useful Content Classroom. Dismissed. And we're clear. Lovely.
Love it.
Lovely. Excellent. Oh, that was good. I didn't expect things to go that direction.
Just so I know, or is this part of the thing, the few minutes afterwards?
Yeah, just like 10 seconds afterwards, I continued.
Okay.
I didn't expect it to go there.
Sorry about that. We went that way when you wanted to go that way, but I think we went where we were needed to go.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Let me stop now.
Love it.
The Useful Content Podcast is brought to you and produced by Relate Studios. You can see the work we do on our website at relatestudios.com. If you like what you've heard on the podcast today, please follow and come back in 2 weeks for another great episode. And if you want to get more useful content in between that, you can follow me, Juma Bannister, on LinkedIn and on Twitter. We all know it's still Twitter. See you soon in the Useful Content Classroom.